I heard the mournful cries before I saw them, haunting, long and low, gripped with sadness, the sting of betrayal close to their hearts. Before they had time for their souls to twist, I would seek them out and claim them. Wasting no time, I follow the cries of my children, those without gods, spirits, or families to claim them, to tend to them in their moment of dire need, the homeless, the unfound, the poor wretches despised by society. I had a home for them all, those who were buried without their identities known, and rites sang over their remains. Even peoples who believed in gifting the remains to the wild still whispered words and said their goodbyes. Lost, forsaken, forgotten, I would guide them, protect them. They would be my chargers. None greeted me with love. They were all filled with fear, trapped between two worlds, and always wished to return to the world of the living. They'd call me devil, demon, or fiend, whichever evil spirit existed in their ancestors' stories. I am none of those. Long ago their words hurt me, yet now I treat it with neutrality. I'd offer my hand, sometimes made of flesh, other times bone, or a dread mixture of the two. They'd hesitate to take it, and finally grasp with a trembling hand, only when the threat of soul-harvesting spirits got too close. Beings created when the world was still young, coldly removing the excess souls from the different worlds. Their snarls terrifying, with long-reaching hands, ready to harvest any unclaimed soul and twisting them into nothing. I saw it happen to one. Once. The first time when a spirit refused to follow. Torn apart, piece by piece, memory after memory, until no echo of their existence remained. I'd take them to my domain, hidden inside an old grove, a graveyard used by a forgotten people, with carved rocks with imagery lost to time. Their bones now dust. It had been so long ago. The people's language had not been spoken for over 1,000 years. In a space between time, where mortals could only approach when the time was right, when the veil was thinnest, at a time when it was easy for the spirits to wander, to speak and call on people through dreams. It was always twilight, lit only with stars and the faint sound of nocturnal birds, owls and ravens, my companions who would protect the dead. I forgot my mortal name, with only my purpose remaining. Hidden here they joined with the rest of my family. Some had been here for a day, while others had been here since humankind walked the earth. The first men. A majority of them would never be claimed. Some would continue to mourn the loss, how they were forgotten by their families, who would move on with their lives. And yet, they remained stagnant, unable to find rest or move on to their next life. A priestess garbed in black, the skirt of her dress trailing behind her, and her face concealed with a many-layered veil, with only the bottom part of her face exposed. She, nameless but living, approached with a lit torch. The flames cast an orange light, and she knelt outside the fence line. She lowered the torch to allow it to catch the oil left behind. The flames circled the grove. The dead whispered in conversation, having never seen such a ritual being performed. They were in deep apprehension for what it could mean. The iron and silver-tipped fence and my presence kept the soul harvesters at bay. Yet they would always linger, waiting on the edge for any slip-up, for the chance to grasp at their prey. The dead soon learned to stay well inside, out of reach. The fence, hidden by layers of dirt and lined with foliage. The priestess's arms were up. They had been pierced with a blade, causing blood to pool in the center. A low murmur from her lips, and I remembered an oath I swore to a winged being from beyond time, one that would grant entry and allow a spirit to pass through my gates. The statue, my likeness, cowed with my head down, built hundreds of years after the grove was claimed, darkened by the elements, and twin tears moved down both its and my cheeks, a sign the plea would be heard. She offered petals of red and purple, the flowers rare nowadays. The name on the tip of my tongue. They had been placed over my abandoned mortal remains, scented oil, blueberries and apples grouped together, with more flowers from a deadly nightshade, a tropha belladonna, and pomegranates crushed together, the dye leaking from the crushed seeds, and the dangerous sweet fumes rose. There was always risk when it came to conducting my rites. Life and death were mutual parts to play. Even if successful, there was a price to be paid. The priestess' body swayed, her limbs limp, and gasped when her third sight opened up, seeing the dead around me and the harvesters of souls. Her painted lips were parted, gasping for breath. The air always felt different near the dead. I wondered which spirit she planned to take home with her, which unfortunate soul would be returned to their people or to their gods. The gate opened at my command and scraped loudly as it did so, clinging to the dirt and fought against the weeds, granting her entry inside. She stood, leaving the offerings at the entrance, and took 2 steps before falling to her knees. Stumbling yet steadfast, she rose to her feet and instinctively knew where to go. In the back corner, secluded, an outcast among outcasts, she fell to her knees, placing her hands on the wet overgrown grass and wiped her blood along it. I felt the spirit start to stir. The priestess's anxious heartbeat, coupled with her breath, were the sole sounds to fill the empty space. She dug with her fingers, pulling up the first layer of plants and penetrating the soil with her fingers, ignoring how they were cut and bled from the barbs from the roots. She panted, lips wide while a hoarse breath came from her throat. The dead encircled around her tightly. Even a priestess of the dead could not withstand their suffocating presence. Still, she pushed on. Her fingers felt a hard, cool object, carefully digging around it, exposing a crushed skull with fragments barely clinging together. The body was old, and I had not seen the spirit for some time now. Now with the bones exposed, there was a dramatic increase of activity. Whispers wondering when it would be their turn. The priestess knelt down on top of the grave, hands on either side of the skeleton, and placed her forehead on top of the slumbering remains, perfectly at home among the dead. Her eyes closed, her whispers of encouragement gentle. She blew her breath into the remains.
It is time. It is time. You are to come home. You are to come home with me. Lost child, awaken. I will return you to your people.
It did not work. The spirit did not stir. She kissed the forehead of the skull, tenderly, and pulled up, realizing there was a red kiss mark, licking her lips, tasting the blood in her mouth, unwilling to halt the ritual and allowing it to trickle down her chin.
It is time. It is time. You are to come home. You are to come with me. Lost child, awaken. I will return you to your people.
The slumber continued. Panic started to stir inside her heart. Her body rocked with emotion to give her courage. The change could be deadly. I could smell her fear building inside her body. I wanted to warn her what the result would be. Yet, I was not the deity who would permit her access. The twins, Death and Time, would need to be willing. Neither was easily satisfied. A sacrifice would need to be great. A deep knowing ran inside her. A bargain made with the gatekeeper, arching her back, lifting her head to expose her neck, and a tear ran down her chin. Her right thumbnail, artificially sharpened to a point, squeezing it tight within her hand, and with one drastic motion, slashed it across her throat. Her blood was the offering. It dribbled down on the skull. Her eyes widened, blessed with greater sight, and she saw the world on the cusp of her death. The dead spirit rose from the earth, fingers piercing the sky before their body followed, and their ghostly form took a deep breath of the foreign air. Much had changed from when they wandered through the world. Again her lips moved in a whisper, unwilling to cease when she was so close to raising the soul. She swayed.
It is time. It is.
The soul's rising. Hands rested on the priestess's own, fingers entwined. A physical manifestation of what would come. I watched the tender, even intimate moment, and knew there was much more agony yet to come.
Where's my family?
Hoarse and rasping, not used to speaking.
It is time. It is time. You are to come home. You are to come with me. Lost child, awaken. I will return you to your people.
Her breath was raspy. Her sway gradually worsened while the blood drained from her body. The spirit did not answer, unsure how to respond. I saw their descendants, many of them. Bloodlines broken, and names lost, having to take on others as their gods they did not recognize. The divine beings either unwilling or too stubborn to care for their lost ones. The songs of their people long destroyed, with only a faint memory remaining. This fragment, a final connection, allowing them to be close. I did not involve myself. My duty was merely a protector and a guide. Yet every time, I was hopeful of success, even if it would mean my flock would grow smaller. The spirit rose from their reclining position, a woman between matron and crone, her hair loose around her shoulders, and garbed in the threadbare remains of what once was. The marks of strangulation around her neck, a dark line with her head that struggled to remain attached. They turned, walking past the other spirits who gazed on with a mixture of envy, contempt, and longing. They parted to permit them to pass. Standing at the entrance of the grove near the parted gates, breaking the sacred pact made was out of the question, and long ago I learned not to intervene. I couldn't warn them. They had to leave a parting offering to me, and none was given. There was a pause at the gate, the urge to get to safety of the mortal world and leave the limbo before blood loss was too great. It must have slipped her mind. The soul attempted to gaze back, only for the priestess to prevent them from doing so, wishing to preserve her charge's existence. Instead, the pair stepped outside and were now at the mercy of the soul harvesters. I expected them to snatch them the moment they were free, right when the power waned. There was silence. They walked while instinct urged them back to safety. Barely a tap, seizing some of their essence and hint of a taste, and prepared to flee back, only for fragments of their soul to be chipped away. The priestess noticed first, still on the cusp of life and death, turning back with her arm outstretched in a demoralized yearning, only to fade away. Her body, broken without a soul, dropped to the ground, instinctively crawling on bloodied fingers in a circle, until the grass scraped fragments of her gown away. Then it was the skin, shedding piece by piece until only the organs remained, with traces of muscle, leaving a trail of tissue, a spark of memory, a hint of what had once been caused her to pull towards the grove, a sole chance of salvation. Yet flesh was weak. Her hair fell out, leaving nothing but an exposed scalp. Her youth melted away, leaving nothing but a skeleton, reaching permanently for the safety of the grove, reaching and raised, with none who would assist her. Unable to completely rot away, yet never blessed enough to be saved. An unending warning for what failure would bring for the unfortunates. Spirits around me observed mutely. Safety within the sanctuary their sole option. Without the priestess's protection, the nameless spirit was defenseless. One final attempt to dash for safety, only to be scooped up and devoured, leaving nothing. She simply had never been, nor even existed. Lost forever. Time stood still while other souls were collected or remains interred. The only living company we had was a solitary gravekeeper, an elderly man with a short grey beard and a deceptively strong frame, the only mortal permitted inside the grove and able to enter, always wearing a sigil made of obsidian and other lost gems around his neck that he would kiss before he crossed the threshold. A sacred bloodline entrusted with the care of the site. A pledge made to me by an ancestor who had survived death and offered their life and those of their descendants, all until their bloodline ended. The old man knew better than to ask any questions about changes to the dirt. He would bury another, often on top of another grave, and would silently step away, never daring to turn his back on the spirits. Once outside, the gate would be closed and he would head off, leaving a trail of sea salt behind him, protecting his journey back to the small cottage where he lived with his late wife, where many generations of his family resided. 2 bedrooms, with a small garden, fenced with a pointed iron fence lined with ivy, mint and rosemary, with a family graveyard in the back. Each deceased member named, acknowledged and mourned for their passing. And he was the last of his bloodline. The priestess was not the last to try. A blind crone held a young girl's hand in hers, her eyes wide and innocent, and the crone held a walking stick in the other, twisted, with wood from a tree that saw the breaking of the ice, and only felt the rise of man, their pace slow yet with purpose. The crone cared not for the skeleton of the unfortunate priestess, stepping over her and trampling on the hand, crushing it underfoot, and leaving bone dust trailing behind her in her long skirt. The little girl opened her mouth to speak, only for her hand to be shook, and it silenced her. Frowning, the child didn't dare to protest. After a couple of paces, she looked back at the skeleton and dropped to her knees when the crone did the same. The crone's bones creaked and cracked, opening up her shoulder bag to reveal her ingredients. It didn't matter the culture, creed, race, or people. They each had their own ways of entering and attempting to barter with me. Their own words spoken and offerings would be given. I watched in silent contemplation, one on the cusp of life and the other of death. It was rare for two to come. The crone tossed back her cowl and removed her blindfold with scarred, stiff hands to reveal two gaping pits where her eyes had once been. She killed her physical sight for her to open up her third eye. Her thin lips were parted in awe, seeing the gathered spirits, and finally caught sight of me. Bowing her head, touching her forehead to the ground many times in reverence. She spoke a tongue I had not heard for some time, heavily accented with another syntax. A revived language, pieced together with fragments of the past blended with the new. The girl beside her knelt, her hands on her lap, and head lowered in obedience. A bead of sweat trickled down her neck. Instinct told her what would occur. Suddenly the crone tore back her cowl, arms up at the heavens and letting out a long shriek. A knife, made from shaved-down bone, curved upright, and the shaft was tightly gripped in her hand. The crone gestured for the child to come closer. The child's eyes downcast, blocking out the world, imagining herself anywhere but here, and covered her ears with her hands, trying to keep the sounds out. Pain gripped the crone's heart, now on the edge. She must act or it would all have been for nothing. The crone grabbed the child by the hair, close to her scalp, dragging her over, and I watched with neutrality. A life for a life. It was not uncommon. The child did not weep, did not beg, all in quiet acceptance. How many nights was she drained of her own desires, only for these whispers to fill her mind? This was her purpose. Her only purpose. They were related, although distantly now. A familial connection. The grandchild of her sister. The girl gazed up at her with large, trusting eyes, only to be met with cold ones. The knife slid along the child's throat, spilling her blood, and the small legs trembled while the child's life expired. The body crumbled, with only a faint twitch of the limbs as movement. Already forgotten, left with me for all time. The child's spirit, not the only unfortunate soul, stood by me, staring at the dread form in silence, itching with the urge to take my hand for comfort. The crone wept, holding her body, and looked around for her sister, long lost, stolen by a group of boys and abandoned after they had finished with her in the woods. Her body had never been found. Left lost, and her spirit came to me, one of the few who found this sanctuary on their own. The sister spirit did not stir from her slumber. Scooping up handfuls of blood, she painted her face with the offering. Her torso swayed back and forth. The tension in her body told me she was in pain. How had she managed to slay her own blood? All for nothing. Tears of blood flowed down her cheeks, betrayed by ambition and a falsehood. The child spirit walked to the correct grave, heaped with many others, and her kinswoman's near the bottom, reaching through the earth to take her relative's own in hand. The sister spirit stood watching the crone. Her little sister, driven to despair and lifelong poverty at her passing. A hand placed on the crone's shoulder, and she breathed a sigh of relief. Finally together, the promise fulfilled. The loss of the child now pushed aside without a care. Their hands met and together they left, unwilling to break the connection until the final act was concluded. If she was successful, I do not know, nor is it my domain to be concerned about. Silence fell over the grove, and once again, the spirits waited to see if they would be claimed. The child spirit became the guardian of the entryway, making an eternal pledge and watched over the dead, their living suffering barely a memory. It was not simply mortals who would arrive at the grove. A goddess, crowned in starlight with a crescent moon on her forehead. A glowing, most dignified dame. Hair flowed down her back, cloaked in darkness, and timeless in majesty and power. She barely stepped on the ground below, and left a trail of light behind her. Her names were many throughout time and place, yet she was always present, never abandoning her faithful, waiting at the gate for her welcome, giving a small wooden horse made of polished oak. It was given to the child keeper of the gate as an offering, and her whispers told me she accepted. Even a being such as she had to make their offering to reclaim a soul, the light of a fallen star. A mixture of stardust was placed at the entrance, with the other gifts in various stages of condition and decay. It led up the fence line, created a gentle glow of protection for the dead, an offering that would not be forgotten. Inclining my head in acceptance, thus permitting them to leave my sanctuary, the soul of the beloved rose, eyes wide in adoration that the time had finally come. The first I took into my refuge, meeting her goddess at the gate, taking her hand in her own, and painted her forehead in the marks of the honored dead, finally freeing her soul from the isolation. Together, hand in hand, they floated above the earth until there was another shooting star in the night sky. The scent of chrysanthemums, Alcea rosea, and orchids filled my nostrils. Burnt together, the ghost of a man who had been lost in war, buried under thick mud and grime, his family never knowing where his remains were, missing in action, unsure of his fate. The mixture allowed him to return, and I watched another soul leave, yet many more remained. A child approached with a circlet of daisies, innocently plucked from a field, and with her boots dirty. I thought she was lost or abandoned by her parents. Instead, she walked with the confidence of a woman much older. An old soul, I thought. She gazed up with tight curls framing her face and rising upwards. Her skin was dark with a blue sheen, at home at night, and I knew she could see the dead. Her eyes had traces of colour known and unknown to humankind. Nor did she fear the whispers from the void.
Soon, the end will come,
she whispered. A messenger? Or perhaps a herald of the end? I realized the child must have been an embodiment of a fragment of the divine. She was correct. Time, no longer a source of concern for me. It continued until the need to collect fewer forsaken souls. Not even the terrifying soul harvesters would wander around. They faded into nothingness until they ceased to be. Their snarls and whispers were no more. No longer did souls cry out to me. No pleas for help or feeling lost. Nor did they wander. They had all been claimed with no more living to pass away. I sensed it was all different. The cycle of life and death had come to a stagnated halt. Nearly all the spirits had been claimed by their gods or their people, leaving the sanctuary empty of the dead. Even the little girl who had become my gatekeeper vanished once they were beckoned. Bones piled on top of each other, and it had never been so silent. Only the mist of the forgotten world passed by, with her life slowly coming to an end. The discreet alcove was hidden from the world. Above, the stars and the sky was broken with fire and the shards of broken planets. When I traveled through time, I found nothing with only the bare components of life lingering, and wondered if I was all that remained. All the ravens and owls had left me, traveling with their own spirits, and leaving stray feathers for me to remember them by. Not even the gods remained, having passed on to their next stage of being. The universe was ending. I'd have to greet the end alone. Finally, a figure approached, and I knew the humanoid shape was not its original form. A thought, a breath, all from when creation was new. A spirit barely seen, and I thought it was another seeking refuge in my sanctuary. They left me nothing, no offering as tribute for their stay within my abode, and in anger, I attempted to push them out. All my attempts were met with failure. A being beyond law. "Who are you? Why have you brought no offering?" I hissed at them. I should have known better. The figure was a blend. Masculine, feminine, living and dead. A being both foreign and ever so familiar. One I wished to unite with a long time ago. The one who had found me when I was still alive and breathing my final breaths. My savior. The one who had granted me purpose. I'm here to take you home. I hope you enjoy this story. What did you think of it? Let me know what you thought in the comments section down below. Don't forget to stab the like button, subscribe, hit the bell and leave a comment. This video is made with the support of my incredible channel members, Patreon subscribers and all my viewers. Thank you so much for supporting me. Don't forget to check out my social media accounts below, including my merch. Stay safe, my little spooklings. And remember, I'll be watching you.